hopefully everyone's had a few moments to take a look at the concept plans that we have on display. Right up front, I wanted to introduce your District 4 Commissioner, Jennifer Thompson. Jennifer,
I have nothing to say. I'm here to listen.
Okay, great. Great. We also have members of our staff. Blake Charlie is our project manager for the county side.
Good evening.
Jeff Newton is the consultant project manager with Macintosh. We also have members from Tavistock, Richard Levy, Max Jackson here tonight as well. And without further ado, we have some parts here as well. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Blanche. We've got a presentation, and then we'll have a little bit of Q&A after that. I'm going to cut the lights in the front.
Thanks, I'm going to just put this back.
Thank you.
Oh, and I left it on. Hi, good evening. Thank you very much for coming. It's very important that we get your input. We want to hear from all of you that have something to say. We do have a short period of time this evening. The meeting will be over at 7, and we will shut down to return the school's property to them. So without further ado, I'm going to start the presentation. I do the presentation without interruption or questions in order to give you the maximum time possible at the end to come forward and give your comments and questions. We do have comment cards. If you know you have a comment, please fill out a card. Lisa, who's back at the table back there, will collect them from you. Certainly during the presentation, if you hear something that generates a question, you can fill out a comment card at that time. There are some right over here to be more convenient. And without further, this is the Sunbridge Parkway Preliminary Design Study Community Meeting. The Parkway, the part of our study is segments 2, 3A, and 3B, and 4. And the road we're studying goes roughly from Aerospace Parkway down the road to the orange Osceola County line, and it's 6.3 miles. For the introduction.
That's good.
Okay. Might be a little hard, but I'll work with it. We will go through the study purpose, the study approach, the key analysis components and the context, existing conditions, which we have to know before we get started, core constraints, the recommended improvement concept, that's the maps you see over here, and the public engagement and schedule. This is not your only opportunity. And then we'll get into the discussion and question and answers. Jeff? So our purpose is to identify context-sensitive and cost-feasible improvements. To do that, we document that the project is needed, and we balance the needs of all users. And balancing means we include safety, mobility, and comfort. And here on the right are the users that we study for: automobiles, pedestrians, cyclists, freight, and transit. I know freight and transit is far in the future, but we need to start looking at it now, Jeffrey. It's a very interactive process. We work extensively with engineering, and now we've come to you. That's the third block over. We will get your comments. We will go back as planners, engineers, and scientists and take into consideration your comments. We will modify the recommended improvement if need be. And again, these issues on the right are the things that we look at as we progress our study. Go ahead, Jeff. So the study context. Right now, here are your segments. We do not do segment 1. Segment 1 is already in design. The other segments are the ones I mentioned. There are 3 projects that need to be taken into consideration for our study. The new interchange on State Road 528 is already substantially open. Segment 1 of Sunbridge Parkway, which will go into construction, and future connection in Osceola County to Silas Drive. And that's the bottom. We have several like all of Central Florida, 7 existing and upcoming developments. A lot of the urban sections of our road center around the Sunbridge PD, Camino Real and Starwood, that's in the north. The Sunbridge PD is about 5,000 acres. In the south, we have the Northeast District in Osceola County, that's 19,000 acres, and you can see there's significant planning that's already going on there. And of course, the Lake Mary Jane Rural Settlement, which I'm sure most of you know, and the Nartusi communities are existing. So, existing conditions, right now, the project is taking place in the Desert Range. It's been there for 60 years. It is one of the largest calf and cattle producing operations in the country. They have approximately 45,000 calf producing beef cattle on site. And it is, and here are some photos of the Desert Range. And this is in the area that we're studying. It's predominantly pasture land or undeveloped. And there are also utilities. If you look at the little yellow boxes, those are City of Cocoa wells. The City of Cocoa is a major East Coast water supply authority. They already have wells, they already have a pipeline that runs close to where the road is. So this area is already being used by the utilities. When we look up at where the railroad crosses, we have gas lines, power lines, and additional water lines. So there are already uses that are going on. Right now, the existing regional drainage is governed by the St. John's and the South Florida Water Management Districts. There are 2 primary receiving bodies for existing water. On the west or northwest is the Conlock-Hatchie River. On the east and going south is Lake Okeechobee via the Kissimmee River. There are several environmental considerations. The Environmental Land Stewardship Program that was entered into by the county in Tavistock, and a future land use amendment, 5.4.2, that was modified in 2016 that requires the road to be in environmental areas of least impact, including least impact to existing hydrologic conditions, critical habitats, and wildlife corridors. So this is a very important map on the right-hand side. That red line is a regional wildlife corridor that takes a good portion of the central east coast. The pink lines are the intra-wildlife corridors, and you can see that here in the south we have a line that goes to the west, and about halfway up we have another wildlife crossing. So I just want you to remember those, and again, this is a picture of the area that we're studying so you have an idea of what's there. The hydrologic and natural features, we have done the pre-permitting data collection. So we have these maps, these are just examples. I wanted to show you ones that had a lot on them. So a lot of them aren't so complicated. But we have gone in and we have identified, according to the change in the comp plan, uplands, wetlands, and surface waters. And then where those are impacted by alignment, that's the hashed areas, so we've identified where there could be impacts within the proposed alignment. For about 2 years, Orange County Transportation Planning and Public Works have required the collection of significantly more environmental data for our roadway projects. And among that is the Florida Natural Areas Inventory. It's like an aerial photograph. Even the maps say do not use these to make decisions, but it gives us a lot of information, so we've included one that we thought that you would be interested in, the strategic habitat map. When we look at this, when we go in the field, we know we have considerations. We get into design, this has to be true. You can see 2 stars on the map. Those are wildlife crossings. We have a potential of 3 wildlife crossings. One of them is in segment 1, which isn't in the study, but the 2 that are in the segments that are in the study are the stars. If you recall, the map I told you was important. Those stars are where those pink lines crossed over.
Mike's off.
Oh, sorry.
The mic's off.
The mic's off.
Oh, the light's on.
You gotta hold it down for a
sorry.
Move on up.
Sorry about that. Okay, so the stars are where those pink lines were, which were the intra-habitat corridors. So we have potential 3 wildlife crossings, and I'd like to tell you what will be in the crossings. There will be a large box culvert, most likely. It will be wet, normally. That will provide passage for animals that travel in water. To the left of each box culvert, on the other side of the water, to the right of each box culvert will be 2 higher level passages for animals that travel on land. So these are rather large, extensive structures that will go in these 2 places to assure those corridors continue to exist after the roadway is constructed. And we have several species of concern: the alligator, indigo snake, Florida pine snakes, fox squirrels. I'm sure many of you know them, but this is the actual species of concern list that we'll be addressing. One of the things we do is traffic. There is no traffic. There is no road, but we do projections of traffic. So we do what's called AADT, average annual daily traffic. That's how many trips there are. So in 2025, the opening year from the northern project limits to Innovation Way South, and that's the line, the little dash line there, about 2/3 of the way down. The highest segment, and there are several segments, but the most used segment will generate approximately 16,800 trips. From Innovation Way South to the county line in 2025, both segments, there are 2, will generate 24,300 trips. In 2040, which is the design year for the project, the traffic in the northern portion, the most busy segment, will generate approximately 39,700 trips. And in the southern section, both segments will generate 36,500 trips. You don't add those together, by the way. Each segment, the trips move from one segment to another. Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh. Have the next slide.
They keep cutting off.
All right, back again. Harsh one. Can I have the next slide, please? There we go. Okay, so drainage is very important. In order to permit the road, we're required to maintain the existing water budget. So what occurs now in the area that the road goes through has to occur when it's done. We can't take water from one side and flood the other and leave this side dry, which would hurt the ecology. We can't take it from the opposite side and flood the other and leave it dry. So there's a balanced water budget we're required to do. In the urban sections on the map here, this is the north, the road will have curb and gutter. The water will be conveyed to stormwater ponds where it will be attenuated and treated so that when that water percolates into the groundwater or is discharged, it's essentially clean. On the south side, the water will be collected in swale. Picture there of a swale. Same thing, attenuated and treated within the swale before discharge. Now, Tavistock and Lake Mary Jane have entered into agreement in 2016, and that water will be treated to outstanding Florida water standards in accordance with that legally binding agreement. And these are the typical sections. So this is what the road will look like. The road will be done in phases. So in segments 2, 3A, and part of 3B, initially you'll have 130-foot, 33-foot right-of-way. It will be a rural segment. We'll collect the water in swales, as I said. There will be, along the entire roadway, a 14-foot trail. That will be to park standards. And it will be fenced on both sides to keep the cattle out and everything off the road. Go to the next slide. Then, at a certain point, when development plans come in order to get a certificate of completion, the design will go to the 4 lanes as necessary. There will be added at the 2-lane stage the curb and gutter and ponds, and a 10-foot multi-use path. So you'll have the 14-foot trail on one side and a multi-use path on the other side. When the next traffic trip comes in, it will go to 4 lanes. And I want everyone to understand the road will have 2 7-foot bike lanes on all roadways, 2-lane or 4-lane. The 10-foot, let's go to 12-foot multi-use trail in the urban sections, and the 14-foot trail as we go the whole way down. So segment 4, in part of 3B, it's 160-foot right-of-way, and it's rural. We'll have no curb and gutter. The stormwater will be treated in swales. There'll be 7-foot bike lanes on both roads when it goes to 4-lane, and will be fenced. And in the rural section, we don't have the concrete pavement, but we still have the 14-foot trail, which will go from the beginning of the project to the county line. A design feeds are 45 on the urban and 60 on the rural. So we have to look at costs as part of what we do. As the road is configured right now, our current estimate is approximately $49 million. That doesn't include mitigation for wetlands or other uplands, because we won't know that till we permit. So public engagement, if you want a newsletter, you'll get 2 more. We have a website. Our website address is there. This is a community meeting, and we'll have a land planning agency workshop, public hearing, and a Board of County Commissioners public hearing. Go ahead, Jeff. The work session, we're planning in December. Public comment is not taken during the work session because that's so the land planning agency actually gets the materials and has a month to review them. Public comments may be made in January at their public hearing, and we hope in March to have another public comment accessibility with a BCC. I'm Blanche Hardy. This is my information. My card is in the back. Please take one. Jeffrey Newton, who Mr. Sanders introduced, is the Macintosh project, the engineering project manager for the project. And again, we encourage you to look at the website because a lot of these materials will be on the website as they become available, the studies and such. Go ahead, Jeff. So this is further questions and answers. We ask that we want you to come forward and make a comment. If your concerns have already been listed, please come and reinforce that. Don't repeat so we can get everybody in. We're all friends, neighbors here, so we like civil discourse. And if I can have the cards, we can get started. Would you please come to the microphone to make your comments, please? I have Mr. G. Mrs. Susie?
I'll pass.
Susie Dunn. You're good? Thank you.
Robert, are you here? Robert Hopkinsville?
Hi, Mr. Hopkinsville.
Howdy.
Let me get a drink, because I'm about unable to talk.
Thank you for having this meeting and inviting us all here. We appreciate the discord and the ability to have access firsthand. First concern is meeting time.
That mic's not working.
My first concern is meeting time. In previous meetings with other agencies and other developments, we've had more of a question and answer period, more of an involvement. I think that was very good, and extending the meeting time may benefit you in really seeing the scope of what people's concerns are. My first concern is the wildlife crossings. Anytime you do put a road into a place, wildlife isn't going to know where the wildlife crossing is, and it is going to be an issue. Where can I find the standards, and where can I find related case studies to say, yes, that is sufficient, and especially for our type of ecology?
What I suggest that you do, you have a big paper there, is to go ahead and turn that in, and then we can assemble the team to address your comments. I can tell you now that the wildlife crossings are going where the wildlife crosses now and where that's been documented. So we're not putting the crossings off where they're not using them or knowing where they are. We're putting the crossings where they're crossing right now. That doesn't mean it's the only place they're crossing, but we do attempt to get them where, and if you recall the maps, you can see the habitat is there, the historical record of the crossing is there, and that's why the stars were where they were. But please, if you would give us that or get my card and email me, and we have biologists in the county and on the team that would be happy to work with you on your answers.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. My concern is that anytime you change the environment, the crossing locations are going to change. A great case study of that is in Denmark, where they built a humongous bridge over a highway full of grass that no piece of wildlife actually uses. So there's a concern there. The road is awfully close to the slough. That was my second concern. Can you talk a little bit more about why in that location instead of being pushed more to the east?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And this is something I think probably a lot of people are interested in. The Roberts Island Slough, to comply, and I mentioned this during the talk, to comply with the comprehensive plan and the land stewardship program, the developers are required to put the road in the least environmentally sensitive area that they can. As you recall, when I was talking about it, it's already used. There are dirt roads there now. The utility is there. That's already being used. Now, granted, it's not this kind of road, but that's already been used by humans to go north and south along that utility line for a long time. We want to keep the grazing. It is a huge cattle ranch. It's going to continue to be a huge cattle ranch in the rural sections. We would like to keep the cattle grazing on the west side so that they're not splitting the herd. We would like to keep the, what? East side, sorry. I do that every time. East side. We would like to keep the wildlife as much as possible on the east side so that we don't ever cut off access to that primary regional corridor. Also, this is going to take about 200 acres of grazing land. So if we're able to give a contiguous grazing land, there are some agricultural practices that are not, there's like a burnout grove, and there's some other places that are no longer viable that will be able to be recovered to help compensate for the 200 acres that will be given to us for the road. So, you know, that's a benefit. It will buffer the slough. Right now, we can graze right up there. It's being active right to the slough. I know you don't think of a road as a buffer, I don't either, but when you look at the trail and the distance we require for that, and the distance from the slough, we will create a more natural area than we have right now, where our anticipation is. And this is the county, this is not Tavistock. Actually, by keeping it close, would be very hard in 50 years or 60 years as times change to develop on that side of the road. So we're hoping to create an area that becomes part of the natural environment and stays that way. And those are the reasons that we did it that way.
Two more questions. The next one is the original Innovation Way theory seemed very logical, very good. Since then, that's kind of been trashed. The road that should have been connected up above is now connecting closer to us. What kind of reassurances can we put in place to make sure that 20 years from now, there's not a developer saying, well, you know, we told we weren't going to do this, but since we've already done this here, we can just inch out a little more, and what kind of protections can we put in place to say, look, for the next 50 years, 100 years, we can protect that slough, that area?
Well, the road.
But
Within
that's,
180 days of the approval of the PDS, Tavistock is required to initiate DEP, and I don't mean Department of Environmental Protection, because I read that, every time I read it, I think that. It's design, engineering, and permitting. You recall when I did the talk about the permitting, they have to do all of this preliminary work to get those permits. The state doesn't issue the permits unless everything is done and the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So within 180 days of the BCC approving this project, that road starts to get designed. So it's going to take time, but the road is going to be through the rural section well before, I think, a lot of building gets done on the south side. We do road access, or we do road agreements. The road agreement is dictating what we're doing now. So the county does their best to assure that what we tell you is what's going to happen. Can things change in 50 years? You bet. Anybody that's been here for 50 years will tell you that happens. But I don't think we're going to move a road that will become arterial.
I'm not concerned about the road, I'm more concerned about what's going to be built around the road. There's an interesting mathematical theory that plays well with energy, and that is, if you add a lane to a road, you won't bring the traffic down. You're just going to encourage more people to drive on the road, and traffic will be worse in the long run. You see that with roads, you see that with energy usage. LED lights, for instance, everyone thinks it brings energy costs down. Well, people just buy more lights and place more of them outside and more energy usage. So when it comes down to building the environment around this road, if you have room for a 4-lane road, you bet people are going to want to develop there, and you bet that development is going to have an impact on the land. And that's going to impact everybody here.
Well, we have a land stewardship program, and we have a regulated plan. If they want to come back and change that, they have to start all over. That means that there will be public hearings again. That means this whole entire thing gets opened up again. That means you have the opportunity to come back in and express your opinion again. That once things are approved, they can't be changed unless the Board of County